Hello everyone and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley and the Forge is an area for me to talk about magic, Commander, and anything else while I try and survive in this crazy world. Now, today we're going to talk about some Duskmourn stuff. First off, I went to my LGS's Double-Headed Giant pre-release with my cousin Nate. He played a blue-black enchantment deck, and I was playing like a Naya direct damage thing, but also I just ran all the Naya cyclers with a couple of copies of Emerge from the Cocoon, and that seemed to go really well. We actually went undefeated. Now, one of those wins I don't really count as a win because one of our opponents had to mull to 4 to have a remotely playable hand, but a win's a win, right? So, I haven't really looked much at the Duskmourn set, so most of what I know about it is from what I saw at my pre-release. I will say there were several legendaries that I saw and several that I've seen since that I've been kind of interested in. I don't know if I'll build anything with any of them, but I just want to touch real quick on some of them. The first one was Toby the Bestie Befriender. 2 and a white, 1/1 human wizard. I had one of these in my deck, along with 2 of the 5-drop red guys that can make gremlins when they attack. When he enters, create a 4/4 white beast creature token with the creature can't attack or block alone. As long as you control 4 or more creature tokens you control have flying. So this just is going to fit in any token deck that's running white. And I've been looking at it. Now, I didn't really see much in the way of blue that really shook my boots, but one person did play the Mind Skinner against us, and we just kind of looked at it and laughed. But it's blue for a 10/1 nightmare. It cannot be blocked. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent, prevent that damage, and each opponent mills that many cards. Very scary. We did find a way to deal with it before it got to attack, but still, it's so stupid. Another one that we ran into at the pre-release was Norin, the Swift Survivalist. That's a single red for a 2/1 human coward. He can't block, but whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may exile it, and you may play that card from exile this turn. So it makes it harder to block other creatures, and again, we ended up just having to wipe the board when Norin and a couple other things were out, just so they couldn't keep recurring. But yeah, I could see a fun way to use Norin. And yeah. Now, that was about it for the mono-colored legendaries we ran into. We did end up running into a couple people running Nico, Light of Hope. Can be very scary with some of the other stuff that was out there. We ended up running into... what was his name? Winter. In our first game of the night, one of our opponents played Winter Misanthropic Guide, which is a black, a red, and a green for a 3/4 human warlock with ward 2. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws 2 cards, and then if you have Delirium, each opponent's maximum hand size is equal to 7 minus the number of those cards. So they did have it to a point where our hand sizes were 3, and yeah, honestly, how we ended up winning that game, because it ended up going to turns, was we neglected to kill Winter to help them mill out. So the person who had Winter was not keeping track of how many cards they had left in their library. And they were like, oh, we need to kill Winter so I don't just deck myself. And they used the white removal spell that can manifest dread. The problem is she had 2 cards left in her library. So we were like, I don't think it matters. You still lose because that gets destroyed. You look at the top 2. One goes to your graveyard. One goes to the battlefield. And then you can't draw on your turn. That's how we won game 1. But yes, lots of interesting things in the set. I don't know what to call them land-wise because they come in tapped unless a player has 13 or less life. I'm sure we'll come up with some kind of name for those lands. What's that one card? Triskaidekaphile? Maybe they're the Triskaidekaphile lands, whatever. Those were actually pretty good. I also enjoyed seeing the rare lands, which are they come in, they tap for a color, or they tap for the other color if you control one of the 2 land names. And yeah, that was kind of it. We had a good time. And I think I'm going to take a quick break here. And I'll see you in a minute. Alright, and welcome back. Now, normally I would kind of do a quick breakdown of a deck that I have or something in the second part of the podcast. But we're going to talk about something that I might potentially build. So first off, when I was talking to my cousin about the cards coming out in Duskmourn, we both were talking about the doll, the Arabella Abandoned Doll. It's a red and white for a 1/3 toy. Whenever Arabella attacks, it deals X damage to each opponent and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 2 or less. Seems interesting, right? But neither of us pulled that, but in my prize packs, I pulled a different Boros legendary, and that's the Jolly Balloon Man. 1, a red and a white for a 1/4 human clown. He has haste, and for 1 in tap, create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control, except it's a 1/1 red balloon creature. In addition to its other colors and types, it has flying and haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. So, there's just so many, I guess you could call them subpar Boros cards that do something when they enter that probably don't get a ton of play, and I just kind of want to throw this together and see how it goes. And I have a small stack of cards that I've already put aside for this. Some old favorites like Sad Robot or Solemn Simulacrum. 4 mana, 2/2, Golem. When he enters, search for a basic, put it into play tapped, then shuffle. When it dies, you draw a card. So if you make a copy of it with the Balloon Man, the turn that Solemn Simulacrum comes out, you get 2 lands and draw a card because the token will get sacrificed. We also have things like Duplicant in this pile. It's a 6 mana 2/4 shapeshifter with imprint. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-token creature as long as the card exiled with Duplicant is a creature card. Duplicant has the power, toughness, and creature types of the last creature card exiled with Duplicant. It's still a shapeshifter. So, yeah, this is just a way to machine gun other people's creatures off the board. Good times. I have things like Death Greeter's Champion. It's 2 in a red for a 2/1 human warrior. It has dash for 3 in a red. And it has backup 1. So when it enters the battlefield, you can put a +1/+1 counter on another creature, and it gains whatever abilities they have. In this case, it's double strike. So whether you're just making the one token that you're making that's going to go away into a 2/2 with double strike, or giving something bigger double strike, it doesn't really matter. One of the things I have in this pile that doesn't necessarily have an ETB effect is Humble Defector. 1 in red for a 2/1 human rogue. You can tap it to draw 2 cards and then have target opponent gain control of Humble Defector. Activate only during your turn. But if you just let this sit on the board and you just make copies with the Balloon Man, you can then tap the copies to draw cards. Your opponents get the token, but then the token goes away at the beginning of your end step, so it's not like they get the value off of it. We have things like Fear of Abduction in this pile, which is 4 white for a 5/5 nightmare. As an additional cost to cast a spell, exile a creature you control, flying. Whenever it enters, exile target creature an opponent controls. When it leaves the battlefield, put each card exiled with it into its owner's hand. So this is not permanent removal, especially when you make a copy with the Jolly Balloon Man, but it does get blockers out of the way, which I feel is going to be important in this kind of deck. Next up, we have Fear of Immobility. It is 4 and a white for a 4/4 nightmare. When it enters, tap up to 1 target creature. If an opponent controls that creature, you put a stun counter on it. So again, just a way to get blockers out of the way. We also have things like Protector of Gondor. 3 and a white for a 3/3 human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, you make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. This next one, I might just make it because of the name, and that is Holy Cow. 2 and a white for a 2/2 Ox Angel. It has flash, it has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and scry 1. In the vein of the Protector of Gondor, we have Prickly Pear, which is 2 and a red for a 2/2 plant mercenary. When it enters the battlefield, you make a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 to end a turn. Activate only as a sorcery. And another one I have set aside for this is Zealous Conscripts. 4 and a red for a 3/3 human warrior with haste. When Zealous Conscripts enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent till end of turn. Untap that permanent. It gains haste until end of turn. So this is just a way to, again, get other blockers out of the way that we can then attack with. I might throw Kiki in there just for the cheeky combo. Maybe. I don't know. And looking through some other stuff, I think some of the other things we want in here are things like Sun Titan, which is 4 white for a 6/6 giant with vigilance. Whenever he enters or attacks, you can return a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So just himself getting things back that we can then copy with the Balloon Man is good, but also on a turn when you play Sun Titan, if you have the 1 extra mana, you can make a copy of Sun Titan. You now get 2 things back from your graveyard, and then when that token with haste attacks, you get a 3rd. So things that have that kind of utility, where maybe it is an attack trigger, still makes a lot of sense here. But another thing we kind of want to be conscious of is mana, because let's face it, it's Boros. The main thing you're going to want to do is have a way to get some mana. And utilizing the Balloon Man is something we can do with things like Claim Jumper. It's 2 and a white for a 3/3 rabbit mercenary with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for a plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped. If an opponent controls more lands than you, repeat this process once. If you search your library this way, shuffle. So, yeah. In that same vein, we have the Knight of the White Orchard, which is white for a 2/2 human knight with first strike. When it enters the battlefield, the opponent controls more lands than you. You may search your library for a plains card, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. And in the same vein, we have Core Cartographer, 3 and a white for a 2/2 Core Scout. When he enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a Plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Next, we will be making a token every turn, and there is an argument for this being like a straight token deck. That's not where I want to take it. But we do have Rosie Cotton of South Lane. We won't be making a copy of her because she is a legendary creature, but for 2 and a white, you get a 1/1 halfling peasant. When she enters the battlefield, you create a food token. And whenever you create a token, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie. So this could be a way to start growing the Balloon Man, make him harder to kill, even though he's already a 1/4. 5 is significantly harder to kill than something with 4 toughness. But also just as we continue to just make a token every combat, it adds up. And the last real part of the plan I have so far is we want to be able to do this multiple times a turn if possible. So that brings me to things like Rings of Brighthearth. 3 mana artifact. Whenever you activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you can pay 2. If you do, copy the ability. Choose new targets for the copy. Same with things like Umbral Mantle. 3 mana for an equipment. It equips for 0. Equipped creature has pay 3. Untap this creature, gets +2/+2 till end of turn. So in our case, this is put it on the Balloon Man. We pay 1 mana to tap it, make a copy of something, 3 to untap it, and then 1 mana to tap it, and 3 mana to untap it. So for every 4 mana we have, we create another token. We also have Magerite Stone, 2 mana artifact, pay 1, tap, untap target creature that has an activated ability with tap in its mana cost, which he does. Alright, and the last couple I want to touch on are Illusionist Bracers, which are 2 mana for an equipment. Whenever the ability of equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, you can copy it and choose new targets. It equips for 3. We have the where did it go? Battle Mager's Bracers, 2 and a red for an equipment. Equipped creature has haste. Whenever an ability of equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, you can pay 1. If you do, copy the ability. You may choose new targets. It equips for 2. We also have things like Sting, the Glinting Dagger, which is 2 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, has haste. At the beginning of each combat, untap equipped creature. Equipped creature has first strike as long as it's blocking or blocked by a goblin or orc. Equips for 2. And good old Helm of the Host. 4 mana, artifact, equipment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except the token isn't legendary. If the equipped creature is legendary, that token gains haste, equips for 5. And that just allows you to make a ton of tokens. There is also all of the token doublers if you want to go down that road. Mostly you'd be looking at the ones in white, but good times had by all. And I think that's where I'm going to cut this one off, so I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.